Hey guys, Matthew here, and welcome to daily update number 3 of the Zero to Hero Challenge. So the video is late by about 12 hours. Technically this is day 4, but I haven't really done anything yet today because I ended the stream really late last night, so I decided to just go to bed because I tried to make the video and I failed miserably, so I decided to report it until this morning, so here we are. So technically I went ahead and calculated we've done 3 streams of about 9 hours each, and I probably played another hour or so off stream every day, just either doing some alt spamming or some fossil spamming or some, buying things like off stream just for the sake of convenience, so that when I go to actually stream, I don't have to just, alt spam something for 7 years because it takes 3,000 alterations kind of thing. But let's go ahead and talk about how much currency we're at. So I have 38 pure exalts. Finally, for the first update, we actually have exalts for once. So where do these exalts come from? So we made the amulet that I spoke about in the last video, and the body armor, both of them sold. The amulet sold for 17x in the end, and the Valregalia for Instacker sold for 32 exalts, and then all the jewels that I had also sold. Now, that was before yesterday's stream, so that's not really where most of the currency comes from. That currency, that was about 50-ish exalt, only allowed us to go into actual crafting. So that's what we did yesterday. So let's talk about the shield that I had started, that I said was a project that I didn't speak about yet because it wasn't done. Well, as you can see, I still don't have it anymore because I actually sold both the ones that I made. So I made one of these on stream and one of these off stream, and I sold both of them for 40 exalts. Now it seems as though the market has been going down a little bit. I don't know if that's just due to a lot of people figuring out how they were made after my stream, or it's just a question of time zone. But yesterday the cheapest one was 45x, and I was selling mine for 40, and the actual price to make these was about half of that. So I was making some real big profit on those. Now the thing about it though is that they are very tedious to make. So I made 2 of them. Like I said, I probably made about 35-40x profit on both, well, both together, that is. So that's pretty good. So let's talk about, there's basically 2 methods to actually make these shields. The first thing is that you need to start with the cold damage. So what you're going to do is you're going to awaken a Crusader alongside a Redeemer, or Redeemer alongside Crusader, Titanium Spirit Shield, and it really doesn't matter if it's, a Crusader or a Redeemer. They're the same price. They're about 30-40 chaos for the bases. Now I would recommend putting some higher quality on it, 27 and above, 28, whatever. It really is just for show, but coming from experience, I would say it definitely helps to sell items when they are better looking, if that makes sense. When it feels like you put a little bit extra effort. So even if it costs you that 1 extra exalt to actually, put in that 28 quality or whatever with perfect fossils, if it sells for an extra few exalts, or if it sells faster because yours has 30 quality versus one has 20, it's just a no-brainer to do so. So I always try to, make my items a little bit better looking, put some white sockets, put some this on, put some more quality, whatever. Put some bling, if you will. So anyways, the first part of this is to start off with the % cold damage. So there's 2 methods to do this. You can either alt spam, which I would not recommend, or you can do what I did and, oh, I don't have any left, but use some 1-socket resonators alongside some frigid fossils. So frigid fossils, when I started doing this, I could get like hundreds of them for 1 chaos each. Now that being said, it seems like the market has been shifting toward 2 chaos each or 1.5 chaos each if you want them in big bulk of at least 50 each. Now if you don't mind buying them 10 or 15 at a time, I'm sure you can still get them for 1 chaos each, but it is what it is. So it is an average of about 350 frigid fossils, and if you consider them at 1 chaos each, that's like 2x worth of fossils to actually get the cold damage to show up, plus the resonators, which is almost another x, so let's call it 3 exalts. Now once you have that, you are going to need to remove every other mod that is on it. Every other mod on the item needs to be removed. So you're probably going to be able to do that with the Lee mechanic, but if you can't, so let's say you have a mod like, I don't know, stun and block recovery or something, what you can do is turn non-cold to cold. So let me explain why that works real quick. So if I head over to PoEDB, under the mod section, and I go to int shields, you'll see that in terms of cold mods, there is our cold mod here, right? Which is, oops, my bad, live search. There's our cold mod here, which is our cold damage, which we care about, which only has the cold tag. Then there's +1 cold, there's cold as extra chaos, there's cold resistance, and then in terms of, there's also maximum cold res. So what can we do? If we get, say, I don't know, reduce attributes requirement, we can do non-cold to cold, and we can do this multiple times. Now, if we do this, it's going to give us one of these other mods. So it can't give us this because we already have it. If it gives us the +1 cold, this has the caster tag, so we can just remove caster very easily. If it gives us the cold damage extra chaos, we can just remove chaos. That's easy. If it gives us cold resistance, we can just swap the resistance from cold to, say, fire, and then remove fire. That's easy. And then same thing here, if it gives us the Redeemer maximum cold res, we can actually swap that. Since we have a Crusader influence as well, we can swap cold to lightning, even if it's actually not an actual resistance roll, it's a maximum resistance roll, it will still work. So then we can easily remove lightning, and so you just have to do as many non-cold to cold as required, and then removing them until you get just the cold damage and literally nothing else. Now, this should cost you less in pretty much any given situation than to do like prefixes cannot be changed and scouring off the suffixes, I would say. Because most of these mods, like non-cold to cold, is extremely cheap. Like remove fire is like super cheap. Like everything's really, really cheap. Now, when that's done, you are going to finish your suffixes first. So the suffixes you care about are basically the plus minimum power charges and the minimum frenzy charge. So as you can see, it is a critical tag for the minimum power charge. Sorry about that. And there's basically two critical tags here. There's a crit chance for spells, and there's the maximum power charges. And if you look at the frenzy charges, it has a speed tag. So if we look at speed tags, there's basically this one, and there's also cast speed. Now, if you realize something here, both the cast speed and the crit chance to spells are caster mods. So if I craft on cannot roll caster modifiers, and I go ahead and augment critical, I'm guaranteed to get power charge. Now, I'm going to get either T1 or T2. It is a 50-50. Now, if you get T2, you can always do remove crit, add crit. You get T1, you're happy. Same thing with Frenzy. It is a speed thing, a speed tag, and the only other one is this. So if you have cannot roll caster, you're guaranteed to get that. Again, 50-50. Now, if you get unlucky here, speed modifiers are pretty expensive. Like speed to speed is like 2 Exalt every time. But it is a 50-50, so on average, you augment speed and then you re-roll it once, so it should cost you about 3 to 3.5x to actually get your +2 minimum frenzy charges. And that's if you buy every craft. Of course, if you do it yourself with your own crafts, it's going to be much, much cheaper. Now, at that point, you're basically done with your suffixes because the last one is going to be crafted double damage. So you start to work on your prefixes. Now, the important prefix that you need to be able to get is this one, increased damage per 1% chance to block damage. So what you're going to do here to get this prefix, it is the rarest prefix of the bunch. So you're going to keep on your cannot roll caster modifier on it because it counts as a suffix block. And what you're going to do is you're going to augment a random influence modifier. When you do so, you're going to hit any of these mods, and then you're going to augment again. Now, why do you augment twice? It's because the first augment is going to serve as a block, and you are going to be able to remove it no matter what. Because let's say you get plus maximum lightning res, you can just remove lightning. If you get faster start of energy shield recharge, you can just remove defense. If you get maximum cold res, you can just change cold to lightning and then remove lightning. Very, very easy. Now, what I would recommend, though, is that if you augment the first mod, the one that has the most weighting and that is the most common is going to be faster start of energy shield recharge. So if you can, when you augment influence, if you get this, be sure to always keep this because it serves as a much bigger block than anything else. Like this block alone serves as much as the whole cold and lightning resistance together. So let's say you augment this first, then you augment influence again. If you get cold res, swap cold to lightning, remove lightning. If you get lightning, remove lightning, aug again until you get this. Should take anywhere from like 4 to 6 tries, and it's about 1 Exalt per try, so it's not that expensive when you're thinking about a shield that sells for 35 to 40 Exalt. Now, once that's done, the next thing that you're going to want is cold damage extra chaos. Now, to get cold damage extra chaos is very easy. You're going to augment chaos. So if you look at chaos, you're going to have no open suffixes because you still have the cannot roll caster modifier at that point. So you cannot roll the +1 chaos because it is considered a caster modifier. So the only thing you can roll is any of these. So you're going to re-roll chaos, so remove add chaos over and over until you get T1 cold damage extra chaos. I believe it is a 1 in 24, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it has a weighting of 50 and a total pool of 1200, so 1 in 24 to get the T1, and that is about 20 to 30 chaos every try, so it's not that expensive either. And at that point, you're basically done. You've got yourself a 35-40 Exalt shield, which should cost you, on average, like literally less than 20 to make. And it was kind of a trump card that I had, you could say, in my arsenal, and one that I knew was going to pay off pretty big, and it did. So the two that I made sold for 40 Exalt each, which was pretty damn nice. Now, of course, that's not all profit because there is some amount of cost to them, but it is what it is. Now, otherwise, what we also crafted this Minion Helmet here. So this is a perfect Minion Helmet with minion damage, +3, T1 ES with socketed gems deal 30% more elemental damage, which is from Essence of Horrors. Socketed spells have 3 crit chance and level 20 hyperthermia. So these are also not that hard to make, but it is very RNG dependent. So how you're going to make this is basically going to spam some Essences of Horrors until you get socketed gems deal 30% more elemental damage, which is guaranteed, alongside +3 level of minion gems. Now, once you've got that, you're basically done. Like, that's the hardest part, if you will. Except, I guess the next part is also on par in terms of how expensive it gets. So the next thing that you're going to want is basically the minion damage. So it is a Shaper and Elder helmet. So let's go ahead and look at those. And the thing that you want is the minion deal damage, or sorry, the minion damage. It has a minion tag and nothing else, which kind of sucks. So the best way to do this, to get this mod, once you have your socketed gems deal 30% more elemental damage and your +3, is to remove everything else from the helmet. You're going to want nothing else on it. Now after that, what I would advise to do is to just augment like cold or something, or fire or lightning or whatever. Just augment something that is going to be a random suffix that you can very easily remove with the lead mechanic that is non-influence. So I would probably go ahead and go with lightning, because if you look at lightning, there's pretty much just lightning resistance. And once you have the lightning resistance alongside the socketed gems and the +3, you're going to craft cannot roll caster modifiers. Now, when you roll cannot roll caster modifier, if we look at the Shaper and Elder prefixes, there is a fair bit of Elder and both Shaper prefixes that have the caster tag. So when you are basically going to remove the odds of rolling any of these, so it does make it much easier to actually hit the T1 minion damage. Now, if I remember correctly, this is a 1 in 16, and obviously the only real way to do so, because all of these don't have tags that you can remove, like mana, minion, no tags, and whatnot, is to do remove add influence. So remove a random influence modifier, add a new influence modifier. Since you have no other influence suffixes and no influence prefixes, you are just going to reroll it over and over until you get the T1 minion damage. Now, it is a 1 in 16, as I said, and then you're basically done. Once you got the minion damage, the +3 and the socketed gems deal more elemental damage, you can just go ahead and move on to the socketed spells have critical strike chance. Now, this is a caster tag. So if you look at caster, what you'll do is you'll basically craft any prefix, because you'll have 2 prefixes at that point. The +3 alongside the minion damage. So you can craft anything, say energy shield, it really doesn't matter. And then you're going to augment a caster modifier. As you can see, there's literally no caster suffixes except for this. So then you can do remove add caster 3 times on average to get your +3. And then for cold, which is basically the suffix that you want, the hyperthermia, socketed gems are supported by level 20 hyperthermia. There's basically hypothermia, which is cold, and then cold res. So actually, now that I think about it, totally forgot. You want to do the hypothermia before you do the socketed spells have crit chance. Because the best way to do the hypothermia is that at that point, you would craft on, you would augment any prefix. So I would probably augment, say, I would probably go ahead and augment ES, like a defense modifier, as a prefix. because you're gonna reroll that for ES anyways. Now, of course, if you're doing a bone helmet, you could instead augment a life modifier. It doesn't really matter. ES for Hubris Circlet, life for bone helmet. Bone helmets are much more expensive, but the bases are also much more expensive. All right, so now what you're gonna do is what I did anyways. You are going to craft cold resistance as a suffix. So then your only suffix is going to be the socketed gems deal 30% more elemental damage alongside your crafted cold res, and then you augment a cold modifier. Since you have no open prefixes, since you augmented life or defense, you are basically guaranteed to get one of the 3 hypothermia tiers. Now, let's say you get tier 2 or tier 3. You don't want to keep that, so what you'll do is you'll remove your cold resistance craft, and then you're going to do remove a random cold modifier. It's going to be guaranteed to hit your hypothermia, and then you craft on cold res again, and then you augment on cold again. And you'll do this average of 3 times to get your tier 1 hypothermia. At that point, your helmet is basically done. All you have to do is, augment the caster mod to get your socketed spells. Reroll caster on average of 3 tries. Don't do critical. It's way too expensive for no reason. And then reroll your life or defense until you're happy with the tier that you get, and you've got yourself a helmet like this, which used to sell for about 100x. It seems now they're more around the 80 to 90 Exalt margin, so it's still pretty good, but it is definitely an expensive craft. And if you get unlucky with either the essences or if you get unlucky with the reroll and the influence, it can get very expensive. Now, that being said, I don't think even with really bad luck that you'll ever lose currency so long as you're selling these for about 80 to 90 Exalt, unless you get incredibly unlucky, because as soon as you got your +3, your sharpest spells, and your minion damage, everything else is so incredibly cheap. So that's that. So we've got ourselves a 80 to 90x helmet. Let's go ahead and consider it at 80 Exalt for the sake of the video. And then we also have our, let's just call that 40 Exalt with the alterations, the chaos, whatever, in our stash tab. So that brings us to a total of 120x. Now, that is net worth, of course. Now, the other thing that I crafted is this wand here. Now, this is a int stacking wand for the build that I believe MBX made. So the way you make this wand is fairly simple as well. It's not too bad to make, but it does require both some crit and some cold rerolls, which is kind of annoying. Now, there's actually a Reddit guide, I believe, on how to make these wand, but it is wrong a little bit. It's not horrible, but it's not 100% as efficient as it can be. So I'm going to go ahead and explain how I would go about doing it and how I personally did it. So the first thing you're going to want to get is your Vaporishing, which is T1 lightning damage to attacks, or flat lightning damage, I should say. Now, there's a couple ways you can do this. Either, obviously, go with alt spamming or metallic fossil spamming. It really is up to you. Now, once that's done, you are going to want to wipe every other stat from the item. So pretty much everything else. Now, once you have just that stat, you're going to want to add some suffixes that you can easily remove with the league mechanic. So what I would probably do is, once you've got everything off the wand, is craft on cannot roll caster modifiers, because almost all of the modifiers that I'm going to talk about are caster here, and then augment fire. So there is going to be the fire damage to attacks, but every other modifier is basically a caster modifier, almost anyways. So what you can do is augment a fire modifier after you put cannot roll caster modifier until you get, say, fire resistance and then fire damage. Or you could also do cold for cold resistance and fire resistance, whatever. The idea is that you want to fill in your suffixes, because now we're going to work on prefixes. Now, once you've got your 2 random suffixes alongside your T1 lightning damage, you are going to craft on cannot roll attack modifiers. Now, if you craft on cannot roll attack modifiers, I'm going to go ahead and show you something. And you slam on a Hunter Exalted Orb, you'll see that every single mod is basically an attack modifier. The only thing that is not an attack modifier is this mod here, which is Penetrate, and then this mod here, which is the spell damage per 16 intelligence, which is what we want. Now, this has a mod of 200, while this has about 1,200. So it is a 1 in 8 chance, I believe, to slam on the spell damage per 16 int initially when you go ahead and hunter slam. Now it doesn't really matter because you're going to be able to force it anyways. So once you slam on the hunter exalt, the next thing you're going to do is augment a influence modifier. Now because you've got no open suffixes and you've got cannot roll attack modifiers, if you get, say, this mod here, since this is a single mod pool, you can't get both of them, you can't get multiple, so you're guaranteed to get this. Now once you do that, you've got yourself your spell damage mod, and you've got yourself pen. What you're going to do is remove a random influence modifier for a 50-50 chance of either removing the pen or the spell damage. So a 50-50 is much better than, say, re-rolling the influence, because it is actually a 1 in 7, if I remember correctly, actually, to get this. And influence rerolls are like 2x each. So that would be 14 exalt worth of rerolls, when instead you could just augment again, which is 1 exalt, and then remove, which is 100C. And it should take you on average doing this 2 times, which is about like what, 3x compared to 14. So much cheaper. Now once you have the spell damage per 16 intelligence, you're actually going to remove your cannot roll attack modifier, and you're going to change this to cannot roll caster modifier. So if we look at caster modifier on wands, or sorry, if we look at lightning modifier on wands, you'll see that most of them are caster, because we have the lightning damage. But that, fortunately for us, we already have lightning damage, so we can't roll this. Then there is the lightning damage here, which is not actually a caster modifier, but it does have the metamod caster tag, meaning it since the league mechanic does respect metamods, if we augment a lightning modifier, it cannot roll this. Now it cannot roll this because this is caster. It cannot roll this because this is caster. So what can it roll? It can roll either lightning damage as extra chaos, which has a weighting of 700, or it can roll what we actually want, which is lightning damage to attacks per 10 intelligence. So by augmenting lightning, and then removing chaos, augmenting lightning, removing chaos, until we get our lightning damage per 10 intelligence. Now at that point, we've got lightning damage per 10 intelligence, we've got spell damage per 16 intelligence, and we've got our T1 lightning damage. Our prefixes are now done. Now, the most efficient way to actually finish off the suffixes, you are going to want attack speed. So if you look at speed suffixes, there's basically prod speed, cast speed, and attack speed. So what you can do is you'll remove cannot roll caster modifier, and instead you're going to craft cast speed. Now that is basically going to block this mod here, and then you're going to do non-speed to speed. Now since you have 2 suffixes that are random, say fire mod or fire res, cold res, whatever, when you do non-speed to speed, it is guaranteed to hit those because cast speed is a speed modifier, and then it's going to give you either prod speed or attack speed. So you're gonna basically do non-speed to speed twice, which the first time is either going to be attack speed or prod speed, and the second time is going to be whatever's missing. So you're going to be guaranteed to hit attack speed every 2 non-speed to speed. Now the thing is though, after that you're going to have to remove a random speed modifier to take a 50-50 to remove either the prod speed or the attack speed. So there is a little bit of RNG there, but the other method, which is the one from the Reddit guide, which I think is very inefficient, is to reroll attack mod. So you do prefixes cannot be changed, and then you do remove attack, add attack over and over. Now there's only a problem with that, and that is that there is a shit ton of attack mod suffixes on wands, and there's even some hunter suffixes. So the wand that the mod you care for has a weighting of 500 and a pool of 4,000, 8,000, 14,000, 20, 21.5, 23.5, 24.5 thousand, which is like 50 attack rerolls, which are like 25C each or something, compared to non-speed to speed, which are like 40-50C, that guarantee you an attack speed every 2 rerolls. And now if you're wondering, yeah, but what if you brick it, say you get a bad attack speed roll or something like that, you are going to do reforge an item keeping all the prefixes. Since you have 3 prefixes, you're safe. All you have to do is that. Now it's going to reforge and give you some random suffixes. They don't matter because you do non-speed to speed, so you're guaranteed to turn them into speed anyways. And if it gives you, let's say, only 1 suffix, then you're going to augment anything. So you could augment cold, fire, lightning, chaos. It really doesn't matter. Just augment something that's going to give you a second suffix, so then you can craft on the cast speed and do non-speed to speed. You need, and that is very important to note, you need to have 3 suffixes before you do non-speed to speed, because if you do non-speed to speed and you have only 2 suffixes, right, then there is a chance that it hits one of your prefixes and it turns it into a suffix, which is really, really bad. At that point, you'd have to restart your prefixes. You don't want to do that. So make sure to have 3 suffixes before that. It's easy because you're crafting one of them, right? And then when you reroll, reforge keeping prefixes, you're guaranteed to get at least 1 suffix. So at the very most, you just have to augment 1 random suffix. Or if you get, let's say, 3 suffixes on the reforge, you can always just remove one of them and then craft on your cast speed. So that is how you make that wand. Now this is about a 40 to 50x wand, so for the sake of video, we're just going to consider it to be worth 40 exalts, which brings us to 160 exalts. Now we don't have much other currency than this. We've got a few exalt, maybe 5-ish exalt worth in jewels and whatnot. And we've got maybe about 10 exalt left in crafts, because I actually sold a bunch yesterday night. People were PMing me from Reforged to buy my crafts somehow. I didn't even know that that was a thing. So I sold quite a bit of crafts last night, so I don't have anywhere near as much as I used to have, but I still have a decent amount. But let's just consider it, for the sake of video, about 5 exalt worth of craft. So my net worth right now is about 170x. Now it's a little bit more than that because I've got some other bases that hold some value. So this, I just purchased that for 7 exalts a little bit earlier today. This is going to be the next project today, so I'm just going to consider that worth 7x. And this scepter here, which was basically alt spammed with the base, let's just consider that to be worth like 3x or something. It doesn't really matter. Which brings our total up to 180 exalt. And then in terms of seed, in terms of plants and all that stuff, we maybe got another couple exalt there. So let's just say another 3 exalt for all the seeds and stuff, which brings our total up to about, our net worth right now would be 180 exalts in roughly 30 hours of playtime, which means we've been making about 6 exalt per hour. So we are very close to finishing up the project of getting 1 mirror. I think after I'm done crafting these 3 items today, which I'll talk about in the next video, of course, I'll probably be at the 1 mirror mark. Now what I'll do at that point is probably just like keep crafting stuff that is cheaper, or selling seeds / selling crafts until I can get a physical mirror. And as soon as I get the physical mirror, I can call it a day. And instead of going for 3 mirrors, what I decided to do is I think I'll be restarting this series from scratch, and this time I'll do it without purchasing any crafts from anyone else. So it's going to be a 0 to hero, but only, if you want to call it, solo self-found. And what I mean by that is I won't actually be buying anything from anybody, except like seeds and all that, but I won't be buying crafts. So that should slow us down in terms of how much currency we can make, since we are basically going to need to farm both the seeds, the crafts, and, you know, all that stuff all together. So that's pretty much it for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Before I go, as always, I do want to say a huge thank you to my supporters: Mario, Luro, Kaigona, Kfish, Legend of A, Dr. Radu, Scott, Eric, and Casticus, as well as, of course, anybody else who wishes to remain anonymous, and anybody else who has supported me through different platforms or in the past. Huge thank you to you guys, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Peace.